What are the odds? A yearly game here on Locked On Pacers, where we try to guess the odds of big Pacers events happening. Will they win more games than last year? Is Myles Turner going to be back? Will a starter be traded? Jimmy Cook's going to help me dive into all that today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Wednesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today we are doing one of my favorite new show traditions. What are the effing odds? And Jimmy Cook, who did this with me last year, we're going to do it again. 7 big events coming the Pacers' way this year. What are the odds of them happening or not happening in this case, including Myles Turner being with the team at this time next year? TJ McConnell's future. Will the Pacers win more games? What's going to happen with some younger players? Who could be traded? Who could not be? And we also run through last year's odds predictions that we did to see who won. Jimmy did a lot better than me. Oops. But we'll break down why that's the case and what will be the swing factors in our decisions this year. Super fun to dive into all these topics, and Jimmy was very gracious with his time. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's just hop right in. What are the odds? It's a recurring series that we started last year. They're going to go until I can't talk into a microphone anymore. The second annual one with Mr. Jimmy Cook from 107.5 The Fan, who has the first that I've seen Pacers baseball jersey on to figure this out with me. Jimmy, I'm embarrassed because I don't give you a lot of prep for what we're going to talk about for these because I want to hear you think through it. And you still beat me last year in the first What Are the Odds challenge. I'm kind of annoyed at you.
God-given abilities, you don't question them sometimes, right? Like I go where the wind takes me, Tony. And apparently last year it was to take you to a dominant win for yours truly in the What Are the Odds last year. Fun game, and I'm glad to be back a part of it this year. Thank you for having me.
Very much inspired by the Dunked On guys who do this with just like random topics all the time. We're going to just do it once a year, but we can check in on them a year later. And everything I've done this summer that looks back at last year at all, in terms of preseason thoughts, whether it's record predictions, over-under, storylines with Dustin, and this with you, everything point that I got wrong or was misguided on was because I and many thought that last year they'd be better, but it would be like 500-ish and kind of rebuilding and playing their young guys and trying to figure out what young guys fit together. And no, they were good. They were really good, and then they were kind of good, and then they were pretty good, and then they peaked at the right time. And that did not make for a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today with Jarris, with some other young guys, look any good. And this year, a lot of the questions are based around not that kind of rubric, but instead success this year and roster moves to be successful for years to come, because rebuilding, development, all that kind of stuff, it matters a little bit this year. Probably last year, it's going to matter a good amount. And then they're trying to win, man, for a while. So you thought they'd be better than me before last season started, and you were right, and that is reflected in our answers. Congratulations, Mr. Optimist, Jimmy Cook.
The best, let's see, hold on. I'm trying to scan my gym room, as I jokingly call it sometimes, because it's both a workout room and that's my name. This is the best I have, as I knocked over like 5 things. I did this. I have a what appears to be a silver horse. Maybe that's the trophy. I don't know. I mean, I don't have an award.
Are you going to give that to me if I win?
See, that's a good question. If I put it up, what I would need this for, I suppose I'd be willing to potentially make it a traveling trophy. We'll see. If not, I'll have to scurry around the house and see what else I have. But for now, yeah, sure. This little Louisville, Kentucky horse is the traveling What Are the Odds trophy.
Well, let's review what last year's were very briefly before we hop into this year's. The first one we did last year was about Jalen Smith and his player option, because that was a topic of discussion around this time last year with the center rotation and how this is all going to play out. And is Jalen Smith going to opt in or out? And he wasn't as good as he could have been in 2022-23. In fact, that was his worst season with the Pacers. And so the thinking was, well, if Isaiah Jackson keeps getting better and Myles Turner keeps playing well, he's not going to play very much. Maybe he'll just opt in. He won't be worth that much money. And instead, for 3 months of the season, he was like the best three-point shooter in the NBA and was a really great backup center. And even with a bad playoffs, was still worth more than that. I said 80% chance he opts in. You said 30. Our biggest difference in percentage and you smoked me. That is pretty much the single-handed reason you beat me is this one, but there's plenty more that you did beat me on. Very good. I did not expect him to outplay that by so much that he got more money and more years. Even up to free agency, I thought he'd just get more years, not more dollars too. But very good work by him and his agency, and he did earn it. He was very good in those first couple months.
I mean, just the way that his contract was constructed and given the monopoly money of the NBA that often happens, that was what I was banking on happening. I'm kind of with you. I was still surprised ultimately by the dollars and years that he winds up getting, but I still thought he would roll the dice, take his chances, and see what the open market would reward him with. And it did. It rewarded him very well, but that was why I was most confident in that one of probably all our other. What are the odds? Just because it's NBA money and it's stupid.
In my head, I even thought, like, if he gets the same money but more years somewhere else, he would take that because he might just be able to play more, especially Chicago, where Vucevic has not been good, where he could, like, start. He got everything. Like, that is the perfect outcome for him. All right, number 2 was postseason berth. I should have just led with that. That was way more interesting to fans last summer than Jalen Smith's player option. I said 55% chance they make the playoffs. You said 70. Bravo. That's 2-0 for you and a 65% percentage lead. And if they had been healthy as they were in the first 3 months of the season, this would have been a slam dunk. Instead, it came down to the last day, but they did it. And they look good enough to do it for quite a few years in a row now.
There was a lot that I was banking on for that to happen. Part of it was, and you were not by any means against this camp. You were at the forefront with me on this, but it was drinking the Tyrese Haliburton Kool-Aid and thinking that the stuff that you saw the year before was going to finally translate to his coming out party, his welcome to the NBA type of stage. And you got multiple moments from him throughout the entirety of the season, but it wasn't just that. A large part of it, and I didn't foresee this happening with as much impact as it did, Tony, but Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith taking leaps forward as well really propelled them. And that was before the Siakam trade happens. Then you have that, and once that deal is solidified for the Pacers, it was not hold all tickets anymore. It was take them to the window because playoff berth was being cashed easily at that point.
Yeah, Nembhard, Nesmith, Toppin, Ben Shepherd, like all these guys were like, oh my God, they're as good or better than people hoped. And then they also traded for Siakam mid-season, which made the preseason prediction for that one wrong. Finally, the third one, my first win, because this was me saying, hey, I thought last year would be about figuring out with that group what they had and then really trying to ascend this year. They were better, but I said more than 10 guys remain from last year's Pacers team. And the answer is actually 13.
Man.
Right now. I said 75%. You said 51. My first win. I'm still down by 41%. But that one felt interesting to me because between Nembhard, Jackson, Haliburton, Shepherd, Walker, Mathurin, and Turner, it was very easy for me to get to 7. And there were a bunch of maybes, like Kendall Brown, TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin, Aaron Nesmith. And how about just all of them? How about every single one of them is back? So that one worked out in my favor more than I thought it would. But I thought that was an interesting storyline from last summer as well.
Yeah, I think I was banking on a lot more needs to be attacked this offseason, or rather needs to be presented to them to a point that they would feel like they need to abandon ship perhaps in a couple areas or modify a couple things. I didn't expect to see as many of the same faces as we have in what is kind of a run it back, at least with the core, so to speak, that the Pacers have going on this year. But that said, if I was to pick one of those to be happy to be wrong about, given what they did last year, it is that one, because not to, give too much away with what are the odds right now, but this has the potential to be a very good Pacers season.
Number 4 was one of Myles Turner, Bruce Brown, or Buddy Hield is traded this season. This was baked in contractual realities and veteran realities. How about 2 of the 3 ended up being moved? And boy, we talk about Myles Turner trades this year. I said 51%. One of them at least is traded. You said 70. You are now back up 60% in total and up 3 there. We both said it was more likely than not. You were more correct that the Pacers reality would suggest that. The next one, Jimmy, my biggest L. But this one is the one that really
bigger than the Jalen Smith one.
Oh, well, my biggest L in terms of what actually happened in reality, not in terms of the percentage.
Okay, not percentages. Okay, all
because
right.
I thought again they would be bridging, trying to win with trying to get their young guys out there. This one was Jarris Walker plays more minutes than Obi Toppin. I said 65%. You said 30%. You were right. and you beat me by 35%. You're now up 95% and 4-1, and that wasn't even close to right. I suggested it was possible Jarace Walker could start at this time last year. That was wrong, and the Pacers clearly made the right choice given how their season went. They'll have to make some decisions with Jarace Walker, as we'll talk about today at some point, but this is the other one besides the Jalen Smith one where you really separated yourself and made this an over. It's over for me.
It was gentleman's sweep. Do we have more, or was that it?
There's two more.
Okay, all right. I was going to say because
the other two are way more boring, though.
Well, I mean, look, I get it. You are a content machine. You want to get the the top shelf stuff out of the way early. I understand. Look, I was fully on board with the Obi Toppin train last offseason. He had been one of those players that from the moment he got drafted, I felt like New York was the wrong fit for him for a lot of different reasons. And I guess I should rephrase that partially. I didn't know on draft night it was going to work out the way it did with New York, but as that roster started to get constructed, you could see this was not a place for him to grow, and he was never going to be the high-level, clear number one option that maybe he was drafted or projected to be, but he could still be a high-level NBA player. That combined with his best traits, which is dunking, and as he, really impressed upon himself, Tony, through the end of last season, stretching the floor more and
shooting, yes.
In spacing the floor for the Pacers, that is as augmented if you could put it in a lab and spit out that type of profile player for what a Rick Carlisle offense would want. It would be Obi Toppin. He exceeded any of the expectations, and that along with the fact that we both kind of saw a potential logjam. I will concede a little bit after the fact. I didn't expect for us to see as little of Jarace Walker as we saw last year. The way that wound up playing out, I understand why it played out that way now, but you told me that, or I told you that last year that, he's not going to really see the floor. There's no way we would have believed it.
Yeah, he played more minutes in the G League than the NBA.
Yeah.
No one would have thought that. The last two were the minor two. I'll just lump them in together really quick. One was that any two-way guy they had would be back. Quentin Jackson gives me a small win on that one, although I was only, a little bit, 10% more confident than you. I'm not going to really pat myself on the back. And the last one was, and this again kind of ties back to Jarace. Do you remember this? People thought, and we were right to think this, that TJ McConnell would be out of the rotation to start the season. And he was. He actually was, which is wild to think about 12 months ago. And so the thought was, well, are they just going to waive him and save the money the next year? We both said very unlikely. I said 20% chance he's waived. You said 15. We were both very right. You were 5% more right. In total, you beat me by 85% and 5-2. Congratulations. TJ McConnell earned being better. He took the role in the rotation that Jarace Walker was had in many's heads, as well as other guards throughout the season. And this year I'm going to beat you. So that is both a reflection of last year and a good check on what happened in the last year, because a lot has changed for the Pacers. Hey, everybody, let's very quickly talk about the great folks over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you will get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Year two. What are the effing odds, Jimmy Cook? Would you like to start hot, medium, cold? How do you want to go first?
Let's drop it like it's hot, Tony. Let's roll.
All right, hot as it gets. Jimmy Cook, what are the odds that Myles Turner is under contract with the Pacers next season? That's the hardest. That's probably the hardest one we're going to do today.
40%.
Wow, that's lower than I'm going to go.
I think that, because correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tony. This is it. This is the walk year in theory, based on where he's at on the books. This is a contract year, and the Pacers cannot extend him during the season. They have to wait until he hits the open market, correct? He's not extension eligible?
Both of those things are correct,
Okay.
yes. This is his contract here. He cannot get extended.
Thank you, and I want to make sure I was right on both those points. I understand the path I'm walking is video game world, and I apologize, I'm not a real GM. 2K and just mapping things out this way is just how my brain works. Myles Turner is a great player for this team. He has a defined role. He is one of their anchors defensively, and there's been moments, especially from beyond the arc, even though some people want him to be a traditional big, where he's carried spurts of this team offensively from both beyond the arc and as a jump shooter. I am in the minority camp, I think, among the Pacers fan base, even though I really love Myles and I love the relationship that he has with the city. I don't view him as a core piece of a legitimate championship contender as this team is currently constructed. And I think the Pacers are going to be forced with a look in the mirror type of moment about this of, can you realistically contend for a championship if he is paid the amount of money that Myles Turner deserves to be paid? Which in my mind, he does. He deserves a ransom. He deserves stupid NBA money because he's that good of a player. But he's not that good of a player to be that high of a percentage for a roster that is getting ready to see the books hit with Tyrese Haliburton, that understands that they're going to have to make a decision on Bennedict Mathurin, that's already paying Pascal Siakam. You cannot have that much money tied up to those three guys, in my mind, and realistically be legitimate contenders for an NBA title. That's not a knock on the skill players or the players individually themselves. It's the reality of just where finances go in the NBA. So either he does not get re-signed and he walks because somebody outbid them, or, and I'm not trying to because in the past, his name has been attached to what I'm about to say wrongly for clickbait because it's trade deadline season. And Myles Turner makes sense to be a guy to be moved. But I'm always of the camp, if a guy is going to walk and you know he's going to walk, you would be better off trying to shop him at the deadline so that you're not left with nothing come 4 months later. So I think either they deal him at the deadline or he is allowed to walk in free agency and finds a better offer. The only way I'm wrong is if A, they disagree with my point about paying him, or he takes a more team-friendly deal that would allow him to keep flexibility for the Pacers moving forward. 40% lock it in for me.
So a trade in February is so hard because whoever gets him can't trade him either, or can't extend him either. Yeah. And the only way they get to a reality where they're like, we should trade him this season is like they aren't good, or like Haliburton's out for the year, or Siakam's out for the year, because then they get worse. But you're absolutely right to say what you just said. Like if I say this every year, like if you're a team that has an expiring contract, you have to think about it. You have to have a meeting about it. Last year they got worse with the trading Buddy Hield, an expiring contract. They were good at that trade deadline, right? And TBD on if that even actually works out. But they made the conference finals. They can say whatever they want. So that does make sense to me. Here's why I'm going to go 70% is they can't, because of what I just said about the trade deadline being tricky, they can't replace him. It's not that he leaves and then they just have that pocket of money for someone else. And so that the 30% is a sign and trade reality, or what you said, a trade in February that would be complicated or weird, but is plausible. And I don't think those are impossible realities because of his contract situation. But if they could lose him and just go like, let's go sign this player who's worth, then I totally would be like, maybe they consider a different type of player, a different position, whatever. But that is not what they can do. And he is the best and most important player they'll have in free agency next year. The cap will outpace contracts and growth. So they'll probably have to sacrifice some other players to keep him. But I think that because he's the best one, that's the decision they should make. And so given what we know right now, if he has a similar season to last year, I would say 70% But that's going to be the story of the season. We'll
That's also a big gap
all the time.
That's one of those where, depending on how that goes in next year's, what are the odds? That's a big percentage right. early for whoever.
We could hit next August and talk about this and be like, oh, it was so obvious. What were we thinking? Like, it's just how it goes with some of these. Like last year when he did this, we didn't even bring up Buddy Hield because this was before all the extension crap happened, right? Like it was, you just never know how this all could change. All right, number 2. Let's go a little softer. James Wiseman is back on the team next year. Team option, non-guaranteed for 2025-26. Team option, very lightly guaranteed, for 2025-26.
And can you remind me the dollar amount on that team option? Is it
he is $500,000 guaranteed this year, and then a team option and barely over $570,000 guaranteed next year.
75%. Okay. On the roster. It's a low risk type of move.
Yes.
There's no I feel like to mesh subjects here, it's like the conversation of, the Colts had to deal with Jelani Woods today of, do you put him on season-ending IR or do you cut him? And the argument there is it's a third-round pick that from a financial standpoint isn't impacting you in a real serious way. Cutting him does nothing. Keeping him, maybe he's a lottery ticket that plays out for you later. Same kind of thing with Wiseman. I understand his career arc has kind of been, it's been in the tank. I still contend, when one of your landing spot winds up being Detroit, have you really had a fair audition for what the NBA can do?
And he missed a whole year, an entire year.
Right. And my answer there is no. I don't know what he winds up being in the NBA, but there's no financial impact here. I'm not looking at him like Myles Turner and saying, oh, look at the percentage of the cap he's taking up. No, super team
minimum.
It would have to be, there would have to be a real locker room problem or something super negative to not retain him. So I'm going to say 75% that he's here next year.
Yeah, it's such a cheap deal that he'll have a long run. The expectations can't be that high, right? That he knows, right? He got $500,000 guaranteed after being the number 2 overall pick. He knows. He said it when I asked him at Summer League, why'd you pick the Pacers? I've seen what they've done developing guys. I need that, right? I haven't had that happen to me yet. And this is by far the best situation he's been in. You mentioned Detroit. I don't even have to explain Detroit to people, but Golden State sounds nice, especially when they were pretty good, but they were good. They're trying to win. Yeah. And he, as a rookie, he played a little bit. And then the year they won the championship, he missed the whole year. Right? It's he wasn't that when they're trying to be winning at that level, you can't play young, not ready guys. So this is maybe he's still a not quite ready guy on a young team, but this is probably the closest chance he'll have to play in a situation where he fits. Now, if he isn't good again, then there's just no way, right? That's 3 teams where he just hasn't worked out. But if he's even just okay because it's a minimum deal that's slightly guaranteed again, I think there's a chance he could be back, and there could be more center opportunities next year, depending on what happens with Turner. And Isaiah Jackson is also an expiring contract. So I'll hedge slightly below you just so I can say I win if this happens. So I'll say 74%, Jimmy. That way, if he's not on the team, I price is right at you. That's really not cool of me.
Okay. Well, since your price is writing me, then I'm going to modify it and go. I'm saying 85%.
Oh, 85%. I'm not going up. I'm going to say.
I know you're not. I need some separation in case I'm wrong on the Myles one. So we'll say 5%.
Oh, this is good. We need the real game theory part of this.
Yeah,
that's what we didn't have.
Trying to play chess over here, baby. Let's keep rolling.
And if he stinks, they could just waive him, but even just bring him into camp, I guess. It's only $500,000. Maybe looks better. So
somebody's got to take over Myles Turner's minutes when they trade him in February. So.
Yeah, if James Wiseman takes over Myles Turner's minutes, this season has been the weirdest.
That's entirely a joke. Unless it's right, then clip it and then save it for next year.
That's right. All right. You want to do another big one, Jimmy?
Let's go.
All right. Next time we do this, what are the odds that one of Bennedict Mathurin or Jarris Walker has been traded?
I will say 20%.
Wow.
I'm on the Bennedict Mathurin train until it crashes, and
yes, you are.
A year and a half to 2 seasons of Jarris Walker is not enough to have a clear answer to deal him. Based on what the Pacers have done in the past, based on how confident they are in their own internal development, I'm not worried about Again, this is the beauty of this show. So watch me eat these words next year.
Yes, this is why I like this. This is what I wanted to see.
I'm not worried about Jarris Walker getting dealt. I'm not. Like, I think that would be way too soon for them to abandon ship on a first-round selection as high as he was in 2 seasons when last year really didn't count because he was log-jammed. And in terms of Bennedict Mathurin, I've said it before, I'll say it again. That's the championship host, my friend. That's it. Like, that. There's no other world unless they pull off some, which I don't want to fully discredit what Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan are capable of, because they've made some pretty cool deals over the last 5 to 7 years with this franchise, pulling rabbits out of their hat. But unless they're able to do that yet again in this league, Bennedict Mathurin's the golden goose. If you want to improve and you want to get beyond the Celtics and be a consistent team in the Eastern Conference in general, make the Eastern Conference Finals, win your first NBA championship, it is being right on that pick. So 20%. Walker's got at least another year of audition tape before they make a decision there. And Bennedict Mathurin's your future next to Tyrese Haliburton. So 20%.
Yeah, it's really fascinating with these two specifically because this season is really unique to me because we know that the team they have is good. They were good last year, and it's mostly the same team. But it's still kind of this wiggling line of like trying to win, clearly. Like they've all-star level talents and good players in starting 5, but they also have these 2 lottery picks hanging out and like who's the backup center? They're both pretty young too. And like there's just a very interesting combination of a young team that's good. And at the same time, there's clearly a financial cliff coming that they have to fly off of somehow, right? And so there's like last year was kind of a season of figuring this stuff out, and Mathurin's injury and the team's success being way higher than they thought kind of changed that timeline. But this year they have to figure it out because they I guess they could keep Turner and just lose McConnell and then have another year to do what you just described. But if they don't figure it all out, or they don't feel like they have enough information, they're trying to win. Like they need the best players possible. Like what if their path to beating the Celtics, to go off what you just said, is trade Mathurin and Walker for like awesome player X, who knows what that could be. I just mentioned that to say there's so many ways that this 1 year could go, but because of the tax realities next year and the guys they've already committed to keeping and not keeping, I do feel like we'll just like something, not seismic, but something will have to give of a rotation player in the next year. And if either of these young guys are ready to be good and help a team that's trying to win right now, then maybe they are part of a deal because they have good value still. And I usually think the players that make the most sense to trade are ones that's value to another team is higher than the team they're on. And that's very rare because teams make decisions with a player in mind. So usually a player is in the situation where they've been valued the most, and thus their value there is higher. That's not always the case. And so with Walker and Mathurin, Walker, you're probably right, has another year of audition tape, but Mathurin, this is a very big year. He's rookie extension eligible next summer, right? So I'm going to go higher than you, but I agree that's probably less than 50%. And the reason I think it's less than 50% is because even if they don't like totally take off this year, either of them, for a team that is facing a financial cliff, they're cheap. They're on rookie deals, and that's really important. But they have to be good enough to justify playing them and keeping them. So it's just a really tricky tightrope, and a lot of it's been possible because Tyrese Haliburton's really, really good, and they've managed the cap really well the last 4 years. But they're gonna hit a head eventually. There is a limit of like how many good contracts a team can have, right? Because the tax line and the aprons exist, and the Pacers are probably right now at the limit.
And that's why I talk about Myles earlier, right? Because like I don't want to mix fully conversations here, but like it's a balancing act here,
right?
You're gonna have to decide what players are getting the biggest pieces of the pie.
And if he gets let's say he makes $25 million next year, a $6 million raise. Okay, that's $6 million less that someone else can't have because you're walking the tightrope, right? So I think it's probably less than 50%, but I do think it's more possible than you said that they have to trade one of these, not have to, that they think really hard about trading one of these guys, either to get another really good player or because they're not ready to contribute for a team that's trying to win right now. It's just a really unique spot of a team that just had 2 lottery picks and is really good. I think the same way about the Orlando Magic with Anthony Black and Jet Howard, right? So like, or the Warriors with Wiseman, even though that did not go well at all for them from a trade perspective. Getting Gary Payton II out of that, like that was a disaster, and they waited a year longer than this. But I think I would go with 40% for this one. But I think that one and the Turner one are going to be
Okay, then again, I apologize.
No. I didn't go 21%. You can't change it again.
Okay, well, okay, fine. I'll keep it.
What were you gonna do?
10%.
Wow,
10%.
lower.
10%.
I'll give you that one actually.
Lock it in, 10%. Because look, I get a hard time for this all the time, and I play around with it. And really, honestly, I don't care. I am who I am at this point. My favorite football team has become a juggernaut when they were just awful throughout my entire childhood, and that would be the Kansas City Chiefs. And my father was a Yankees fan, and I'm a Yankees fan.
I can't listen to this.
Yeah, look, my point is, though, professionally, in this state, the only team I have, wearing the Pacers shirt, hitching the wagon to, is Indiana. Was that always that way for me? No. Look, I love the NBA as a whole. The cards on the table, two of my favorite players growing up as a kid, Allen Iverson and LeBron James. I understand that those are two polarizing figures in their own right, but I would love to see the Pacers make good. And so I don't want to be doom and gloom here, but why I go as low as I do, if they're wrong on Mathurin, I'm not saying they can't be back to the Pacers of old where they're consistently a playoff team and they're always exciting night in and night out. But you have to be near perfect in small markets, in any market, but especially small markets, to construct championship caliber DNA. If they're wrong on Mathurin and I'm wrong on this pick, if Walker might screw me, who knows? If Walker gets traded because they were done with him, fine. But if it's Mathurin that moves, you're talking about some real hard decisions that have to be made for it not to be a step backward for them in their long-term goals 2, 3, 4 years down the line.
Jimmy, did I forget to congratulate you on your Florida Panthers winning these?
Yeah, all right.
Did I forget to do that?
Look, that. There's two reasons that's funny. Is because it plays into this half bit, half not bit of I only root. I don't switch teams. Tony. Point is, I want to see the Pacers do well. And if they're wrong on Mathurin, then unlike the Florida Panthers, they won't be hoisting their sport's biggest prize. So there you go.
Well, and congrats to you on Dan Hurley turning down the Lakers to stick with your UConn Huskies. Let's keep talking.
Thank you. That was not real. I will fight you on that one. What's next?
Let's keep going on the Pacers. I have 4 more, but none of them are nearly as big as the 3 they've done so far. So I apologize for taking up more of your time than I thought, Jimmy. Okay, number 4. Let's go with the easiest one, I think, here. The Pacers win more games than last season. What are the odds?
Can you give me that figure?
They won 47 last year.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
100? 100?
Yeah, take it to the bank, 100%.
Wow.
100%. Yeah, no, I think this is a really, really, I think this is a eye-popping Paul George era level Pacers season for them. Give me over 47, 100%.
Wow.
If the over-under was 47 and a half, let's just say that's what Vegas set it, I would take that to the bank immediately. 100%.
You can. Lines are set, and it's like 46 and a half, everywhere. Right.
Then bank it for me, 100%.
I ran through the schedule. Which I always
run through the schedule, by the way. I'm talking totally in full confidence with this Pacers team. You go with the real numbers and logistics. I'm going with the gut, baby. That's what's happening there.
Well, I will say that when I ran through the schedule, I got 48, and that only is the 80 scheduled games. That does not include the 2 in-season tournament games that we don't know who it will be yet. So I also will go over 47. Last year I went over 37 and a half pretty comfortably. Not pretty comfortably, but 3 wins is a lot. And that was in my predictions, and they smoked it. So I will agree with you that
I think I'm laughing because I think I'm forcing your hand here because I'm playing catch up for some of the ones I might be wrong on by they're winning 40.
100.
So how close are you getting to me?
Year 2, Jimmy 1, he said, "Screw this! I'm game theorying my way to the top every year now. I'm not gonna go with my actual answer. I'm gonna go with the ways the percentage helps. But I'll probably go 65%, only because I'm so close to that number."
Okay.
And I think that this kind of season where you get expectations for the first time as a franchise and you're putting a lot on internal development as opposed to new additions can be harder. I think they'll be better. I reflect that in my predictions for their win total, but that can be a harder way to see progress. So they also have 41 more games of Siakam than last year, all sorts of stuff that should go their way, but it has to actually happen. And this is the kind of year where like losses hurt a lot more and there's expectations and there's pressure. So how does that impact how their team looks and operates? I don't know, but I agree with you that they will be better than last year in terms of win-loss. And I will predict they win 49 games, including the in-season tournament. Probably the hardest one left. Actually, let's go with another easy one.
Okay.
On merit, not because of a trade or an injury, on merit alone, what are the odds, Jimmy Cook, that the Pacers starting lineup changes this season?
Is the perceived starting lineup Haliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, Turner?
Yes. I see no reason why that would not be the case.
Okay, we've reached the point of the pod where it gets real. Man, I wish I had poker chips.
Oh, man.
All chips in, Jim Irsay style. The question was, on merit, does that starting five change at all this year? That's the question?
Yes.
What's the definition? To clarify that, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, what does that mean? How many games is the minimum there? It's like if somebody gets hurt and the starting lineup is different, that doesn't count, right?
That's not, no. Merit is the wrong word, like performance reasons.
Okay.
Last year when I'm trying to think of the right, like last year when Nembhard was starting because Haliburton was out, that's like on merit because he's the best guy to start with Haliburton out, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is like they go to Atlanta and they go, oh, we're moving Obi Toppin, but he healed to the bench so we can beat the Hawks. And then they stuck with that group for a long time. And then they get to Christmas and they say, oh, crap, we need to defend and rebound better. We're going to start Jalen Smith, right? And that worked for a while. That was their best stretch of the season. Like on performance-related merit. Someone is playing better than someone else, or a five-man group is working better than that starting five.
I always do this once a year where I overcomplicate something. Just to clarify, that only has to happen once. If that happens once, like they hit a run.
Not like, okay. I need like the caveat to this one. I'm going to say that it can't happen for one game. It has to be like a stretch. You know what I mean?
Right, but it's just one change. Like, for example, this never happened, but just for the sake of it, TJ McConnell is now the starting point guard of the NBA. And permanent for 50 games. That counts?
If he outplays Tyrese Haliburton this year as a starter, yes, that counts.
Yeah.
Tyrese, if you're listening, we do not believe that.
No, that was a joke. Again, I preface that one's really a joke, and if it happens, I'll be very sad. So again, to clarify, okay, chips are all the way in 100% because Bennedict Mathurin is going to be a starter and earn that position at some point this year. 100%. There will be a change from the starting lineup of Haliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, Turner, and I'll even call my shot on it. Bennedict Mathurin is going to be a starter this year.
So I think that is the most likely reason it would be a change is Mathurin starts for either Nesmith or Nembhard because he fits better or he's just better to the point that the fit part doesn't matter. I can't go to 100%. Here's why. Last year with almost the same team, in fact, the only two changes right now, and the only other changes that could happen are all really small, are McDermott out for Johnny Furphy, younger and worse right now. Furphy will be more impactful than McDermott was last year at some point. And Jalen Smith out for Wiseman. Okay, so they got younger at those spots. So last year, all the time, right after they made trades, when there was injuries, I always defaulted to eventually they're going to settle on the lineup that they did. I always thought that would be the best group that fits between Haliburton and Siakam, and they pair well with Turner, and they did. That was their best lineup. That's why they started. That's why they kept it into the playoffs, right? So I think it's going to be a lot harder to disrupt that group with the same players this year, right? McConnell's not going to take away. In fact, we could say that Siakam, Turner, and Haliburton like locks for the whole season right now, right? Like not.
Yeah. No, it's not going to change.
Right. So basically,
unless a February deadline call happens, then who's to say?
Right. Like if they are mixing up the front court, it's because someone's hurt, and if they're mixing up Haliburton, it's because he's hurt. In the 2-3 spots, maybe, but what would that take, right? Mathurin being better or fitting better. Is there any route to Ben Shepherd popping up there? No, probably not. Like Ben Shepherd does a lot of the stuff Nesmith does, but just not as good as Aaron Nesmith does. Not as close to as good as Aaron Nesmith does. So that seems very unlikely. And like I could grimace right now and go, maybe Jarris gets a lot better. That would be a really big improvement from year 1 to 2. And I don't think they're going to commit to Obi Toppin at the 4, Pascal Siakam at the 3 kind of deal. I've thought about that. but I don't think that's something they would do. That is a possibility that I'll give some slim possibility to, but I agree with you that Mathurin or an insane improvement Walker or one of Nembhard Nesmith would be the answer. That said, I think that the defensive part of what Nesmith and Nembhard provide is still going to be better than Mathurin's defensive value this year, and that is why those guys are starting, because they can guard in a way that a Haliburton, Siakam, Turner group needs, and the Pacers sucked at defense last year, so maybe I'm overrating the actual value of that, especially in a regular season setting, but I don't think I can go nearly as high as 100%, and I think it's actually pretty likely that Mathurin have to be very spectacular to avoid the fit part of it. Now, if he fits better, then ignore everything I just said. I'm going to go 49%. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm not going to discount it because there's multiple routes that could make it possible. 100% from you. This is going to be weird next year.
Look, I'm being doom and gloom with the forecast here, but Mathurin, dating back to the Arizona days, looks like a guy that has that dog in him, that wants to be.
I liked him in the draft quite a bit.
We both did.
Yeah.
And for those reasons, I just don't see, even if you could argue it's just semantics, I don't see how a third-year player after the Christmas Day games, if he's still being told, no, you're valuable, and we'll still even play you maybe in crunch time, but you're not a starter on this team. I don't know how it would take somebody better than me, and maybe Mathurin is, right? Maybe he doesn't have an ego on him. It would take somebody better than me to be able to look at that and say, well, that's not what you drafted me to be. I'm a starter in this league. You don't believe in me enough to make me a start. Like, I don't like that path one bit. I agree with you, Tony. Like, maybe that is the answer, that he's just not good enough defensively, but so much of what I think the Pacers can be, and so much of these, what are the odds tonight, are based on what Mathurin can be, what I believe Bennedict Mathurin can be. So that's why I go as brash and crazy as 100%, because I just don't know how that meshes if your coveted gem in the draft by year 3 is still a guy that's off the bench. I don't know.
So Jimmy Cook just said, everybody, that it'd be weird for a third-year guard who's producing and they drafted to come off the bench. So Andrew Nembhard is not coming off the bench, according to Jimmy Cook.
No. but I did give the caveat of first round draft selection in the top.
Yes, you did.
15 of the draft, wherever he was taken.
Yes, you did. Again, it's the same as last year with Mathurin, where I just want to see fit stuff. Not even just defense, although that matters a great deal for him, especially team defense, but like quick decisions, passing, get the 3 up quick and make them kind of stuff. I know you can score, dude. Like, you're really good at it. Yeah. Really good at it. Do a lot of these other stuff, and you'll get more chances to play and score. I promise. He's so talented. It's just gotta click with what the team does well now. Okay, last two. One's really short. One's not as short. TJ McConnell is retained and is on the team next year. He gets 2 years in a row of the same topic, but this time it's different because he's clearly going to play. But the financial cliff is coming, and TJ McConnell on a team with lots of guards, including Ben Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard, is going to be a free agent. Unless they extend him, which is still legal.
Answer me this. He's what, 34 next year? Is he 33 right now?
He's 32 right now. He turns 33 next year.
Okay. Sorry.
I'll never forget his age because right after his birthday, I saw him in Chicago. I said, hey, 32, what's up? And then he did not talk to me for the rest of the day. Never let the aging athlete know their age. Much deserved punishment for me.
Let them just keep it in their hearts.
That's right.
What do you think realistically he commands on a 1-year deal with another team?
1 year?
Or a 2-year, whatever. Just like an average annual evaluation for him.
10 to 12. Makes 9 now, and he's better than he was when he signed this deal.
He had a great year last year.
Phenomenal.
He had a great year.
Best backup point guard in the league, like undebatably.
Unquestioned. Yeah. He did that after we said all off season that it was over. That there was no goal.
Right? Yeah. Crazy.
So, like, the question again, just to make sure I answer it correctly, is percentage chance that he is on the roster or is not?
He is retained. He is either signs an extension or signs an next year in free agency.
The extreme days are gone here. I'm going to say 54% that he's still on the roster because I subscribe to the Jake Query school of he is going to at some point transition from Pacers player to Pacers assistant coach or whatever, member of the transitional powers that be to get him into a coaching staff one day. I believe they value him incredibly. I believe they think that he is not only a figurehead, which the only reason you're entertaining keeping a guy like that on the bench last year, that's why we thought he might be on the bench last year, was because, but he's a leader in the locker room. He understands the game. He's been around. He has a work ethic second to none. Even if he isn't in the rotation anymore, there's a home for him on this roster. I think that the Pacers, for that type of evaluation, assuming they don't get outbid, and I would think a veteran player like TJ McConnell would know, is an extra $3 million, $4 million a year really worth a great fit and a great setting. So I think they're both going to want to come to the table to renegotiate him and keep him here. What that number is, who knows? But I'll say 54% he is a Pacer next year. Also, we need a ruling here. If he is not retained but retires and immediately goes to the Pacers staff, what does that get called? Does that get called?
That is a fail. That is a miss.
Okay.
Retained as a player.
Still be with. Okay. All right. Okay. 54%. 54% still a player.
This one's I think this one is not as consequential, obviously, some of the ones we said, but is the hardest for me to actually answer because you're right at 50-50, right? Like he is really good as in his role. And I think a unique thing about him and specific to the Pacers, I think this is the case, is playing the way they play with Tyrese Haliburton. Like when you go to your bench, you want to keep playing the way you play, right? You don't want to just have one unit that plays this way and a bench that plays totally different. Like it makes it really hard when there's injuries and stuff to blend it. Like that's a problem the Nuggets have had for forever. They take Jokic out and whoever the backup five is like, oh, I can't pass. Like I can't do any of that stuff. Like, and then they're just worse. McConnell isn't as good as Tyrese Haliburton, not even close, but he can play that way, right? Like up tempo, zip the ball around, get in the paint, like make stuff happen. And so they look really good. And their bench was awesome last year. And a big part of it was like, hey, this is the best ISO score in the league for last month. And that's not a joke. Like by efficiency, it was the thing.
Yeah.
And so in my head, it's like, if you want to keep playing that way, you want that backup. On the other hand, we talked about, hey, if they're going to keep Turner, they're probably going to have to lose somebody. Hey, here's where the money could come from, right? Like this is the most obvious place. I'm not saying this is what should happen, but the most obvious place for the money to come from, especially on a team that has Haliburton, that has Nembhard, that has Mathurin already, right? So they already have other guards, like several of them who are capable of handling it somewhat often. So I, like you, would put this pretty close to 50-50. It probably will come down to the price and what TJ McConnell wants for his future, because this could be his last, probably would be his last pretty significant contract. So I have a lot of trouble with this one. I'm going to, like, same thing we said with Turner too. If he's expiring come February, he could be extended after the trade deadline, but you have to think about it, right? If a veteran expiring contract on a younger-ish team, I'm going to go 49. If I could, I'd go 49.9, like as close to a coin flip as I can, but I have to be on a side. And I think that with their financial cliff coming and the number of guards they currently have, I just think it's a little more likely than not he's not. But there was all the reporting about the extension this year, and Chad Buchanan said, I believe, was this you guys, or was it the morning show, about him being, I forget which one it was. There were so many. He did all of you guys' shows.
It all blurs together.
About him being a Pacer for life and all that. Like, it's really tough. And we're only 5% apart, so it's not like I'm like so differing from your opinion, but
you're worried about the money. You're worried about the money, and I understand why you're worried about the money. But when Myles Turner's not on the roster and I relapse,
right? That's true.
Goes back to it's going to be icing on the cake for me. So.
Well, if they trade one of the young guys, like we talked about, they'll have more money to keep TJ McConnell. So hey, all right, we're solving all the problems at once. Yeah, they somehow need to get one more rotation player contract. It's like a really good contract. And I don't know, they can't think that way. They need to figure out their own team first. But like if they had like Onyeka Okongwu's contract or Denny Avdia's contract, like that'd be great. You can't just have it. You have to give up stuff for it. That's why it's hard. But that's kind of something I'd be thinking about the Spacers. Last one. I'm sorry, Jimmy, this is way longer than I thought.
No.
A starter is traded. What are the odds? Any of the five. that we talked about earlier.
Can you go first on this one?
Yes, I will. Okay, Tyrese Haliburton, 0%. Duh. Pascal Siakam, probably 0.05%. Myles Turner is probably the highest percentage because his contract expiring, but I'd still put it low for a team trying to win that can't replace him very easily. That takes me to the guys we talked about earlier as the most likely shakeups if they make a merit or performance-based, whatever we called it, starting lineup change of Nesmith and Nembhard. Nembhard is a crazy interesting player to me contractually this season. I'm, as you know, because I've talked to you about it on the radio and when we talk in person, stupidly high on Andrew Nembhard. Like, I think he's a terrifically good player, great fit. He is under contract for $2 million this season, and then it goes up to 18. If you're a team that can't trade for an $18 million player, but can trade for a $2 million player, what a ticket. What a way to get a good player while they're cheap before their contract goes up. But that makes him really, really hard to trade for without giving up a ton of stuff. Nesmith is just on a home run deal that I don't think the Pacers should be trying to trade. But if they trade for a star, would be a nice contract to have if you're the team receiving stuff from the Pacers. I think the answer for me is probably 30%. I think there's routes to 3 guys getting traded. All of them probably involve trading for an upgrade for it to happen. But I don't think that this would be the year to do it. I think next summer or next season would be the time that they have to kind of have that reckoning because of their financial reality.
Give me the number one more time.
30%. Most of that would be baked on the expiring contract of Myles Turner, even though I don't expect him to get traded.
Okay, I'm going to go 50.5%.
Whoa. Yeah, 50 or 51. 51.
Oh, I can't get the decimal.
No, I'm not trying to do half math.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you have the math to do. Okay. I was trying to, because whatever. It's all going to come down to, you said, what would you say? What's your percentage?
30.
Okay. Watch me eat this next year. In all likelihood, I'm either going to be sad most of the episode next year or just very obnoxious because of how insane some of my metrics were on these numbers. 51%. There are 2 scenarios where a starter gets traded in my mind. The first one is the easy one. Myles Turner, and there just becomes a perfect match set up where a contender that feels like they're a Myles Turner away wants him, and they're also giving away some type of, Tony, I know I'm probably going to butcher the salary cap rules here, but like something that meshes well for either a player need that they would have or a team control the players would have that's a couple tiers below Myles, but like, still something sufficient for their growth, or maybe draft capital that helps them plug and play somewhere the following.
That's what I was thinking. The Pacers who made the conference finals need draft picks. That's what I was thinking.
I am merely speaking. I'm merely speaking to what, because you're not trading Myles Turner for. You're not trading Myles Turner for the second coming of Timofey Mozgov. Like
and the thing is, there's no challenge trades in the NBA anymore. Like
right.
Yusuf Nurkic for who was that? Mason Plumlee, I think. Like that happened, but like that is so rare.
Yeah.
Like that never happens anymore.
So again, I understand. I don't mean to phrase that like, oh, the Pacers are going to No, I'm talking about if the Pacers feel like a decision has to be made on Myles, they're looking for one of 2 things. They're looking for a valuable veteran or a valuable team control contract of a guy that's contributing right away, or they're looking for a draft asset, which I know no one wants to hear, but you're playing the long game here. Like Siakam's not getting any younger. Turner isn't either. Like Haliburton's still very young. So while a draft pick might make somebody turn their nose up, you're planning for the long-term championship window here. So that's option A. Option B, probably the most controversial one that I have in my arsenal, and something that I think makes JMV on the ride with JMV, of course, Jimmy Cook here, Querying Company, noon to 3 on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. But what the program that follows us, the ride with JMV, what John makes him label me as somebody that wants to trade all the Pacers away. The way that Jamal Murray and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander spoke about Andrew Nembhard throughout that run with Team Canada makes me wonder if a team wouldn't look at him look at what he's making and think, you know what? We need a guy that's a true point guard. And that is where Nembhard is best fitted. And also, Pacers, we're not robbing you blind. We're going to give you, because it's just hypothetical fantasy land where I can make up whatever I want. We're giving you a shooting guard that is a pure shooting guard that would mesh perfectly with what Tyrese Haliburton is right now. And there you go. Holy matrimony. Yay. Bringing the dancing lobsters, any other cliche you want to throw in there. Those are the only two scenarios. I will put it in a coin flip, more so because the Nembhard's one's fascinating to me because, man, he looked good with Team Canada, and he did it in a lot of different ways, but, like, I could see him being a primary point guard on a high-level contender. And unless he's doing it off the bench, that's Haliburton's role. That job's occupied, man. So would the Pacers ever do that? No. I'm not clinically insane, but, like, those are the two windows. No one else is getting traded. I'm right there with you. Myles is safe. Siakam is safe. Or not Myles, excuse me. We just said it. Haliburton is safe. Siakam is safe. And Nesmith is in all likelihood safe.
Nesmith's contract is just like so stupidly good for a wing.
It's insane. It's insane. So those are the only two that you're entertaining. Nembhard, no one's entertaining but me over here in Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
Me. So yeah, I'll say 51%, mainly because of Myles, but I'd be fascinated if my crazy brain theory worked out where the Pacers got a clear running mate for Tyrese Haliburton, and it was a perfect match trade with a team that needed a starting point guard.
I'm just so stupidly high on Andrew Nembhard that, like, every time I hear Jamal Murray say, like, if I'm the Pacers, I'm like, yes, that's on our team. You know what I mean? Like,
I didn't insult him there, by the way. I'm praising his game. Yeah. I just think another team would look at it and say, also, maybe that's how the Nembhard transition happens because, or not, excuse me, the Mathurin transition happens. Maybe he takes that leap forward and the Pacers are like embarrassment of riches all of a sudden. And a team's like, we're going to overpay the heck out of getting Nembhard on our team. He's a blessing on the Pacers. I realize I'm cuckoo tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist here, but, like, what other guys are getting dealt in the starting lineup? Those are the only two that maybe you could entertain. 51%.
51. Oh, this one, last year, the theme and the reality of what became a Jimmy Cook Watfo victory was you thought the team was better than me. And that was baked into a lot of the realities of the questions that defined last season. If you win this year, it's because Bennedict Mathurin's really good.
Oh, yeah, I'm all in.
That would affect so many of these answers, right? Yep. So yes. This is the Watfo year of Mathurin. Jimmy has the silver horse, which those of you listening that he keeps holding up as the trophy. You can't see it, but it is. I'm sorry to say this, Jimmy, because you're very proud of your trophy, but it is underwhelming of a silver horse trophy as you could imagine for this exercise.
I'm not giving away this. This is what my wife gave me. It's pinstripe Dachshund. I'm not giving that away. So I
don't want pinstripe Dachshund, so you can keep.
All right. Well,
you keep pinstripe Dachshund.
That's your own fault. Wiener dogs are awesome.
If it was Jimmy Rollins Dotson or something, maybe we could talk. Jimmy, this was great. I love yearly things, and that's what August is all about. Where can people find you and the things you have to say about the Pacers? And right now, especially, I'm guessing a lot of my listeners will be interested in Colts roster cuts because Locked On Colts, we'll talk about that. But Jimmy, tomorrow, I'm imagining that will be several of your hours of programming. Yes.
Colts, and more Colts from here on out until the Pacers join the program. And, of course, and there's a signage behind you as well. Shout out to the Fever as they make that playoff.
Yes.
And, you know, it's been incredible what is happening for them. Caitlin Clark and in general, Leah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, them all starting to come together and really turn a page of, man, this is a legitimate playoff team now. And they're going to end that 8-year drought. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure, tomorrow as well. But yeah, Colts will dominate the conversation. You can follow me on Twitter below. For those of you that are audio only, at the J Cook on Twitter. At THEJCOOK for the phonetic aspect of it. Co-host of Query & Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. You can get that by going to youtube.com, searching 107.5 The Fan, and just tune in right around noon. Or you can get it, of course, on both those radio stations I mentioned and online, 107.5thefan.com. we're in full swing now, baby. We're ready for the Colts season, and it won't be long before we have that sweet, sweet crossover effect, which is reaction to Pacers games and pre-countdown for a Colts weekend all in the same breath. So I can't wait. And sometimes you'll hear, I don't know directionally where the setup is on your screen. I guess he's to my left. Tony East sometimes comes on the airways. So it's a great time. Love Synergy. Synergy's awesome. Thank you.
Depending on how far the Fever get into the playoffs, there could be like one day of like Pacers preseason, Fever game, and Colts, which has not happened.
Little solstice, okay.
That hasn't happened in a long time. And I am a big Midday Show fan, not only because I'm on it sometimes, but because when I talk to Kevin and Andy in the morning, I have to set an alarm. It's very early for someone like me. And John, to no fault of his own, it's always like Pacers media is just starting, or that's when practice is. I have stuff. So I can't say yes as much. I always feel really bad. But the Midday Show, right between it.
We are made for each other.
I am available. Exactly. I'm at home. It's perfect. My fiance's at work. I'm in. Follow Jimmy. And tomorrow here, we will be back to, I believe, let me check the schedule that I make that I should know better. We'll be back to historic seasons by position, talking about small forwards. Going to be some Paul George, some Danny Granger. Who else has a top 5 season in Pacers history at the small forward position? Looking forward to that and finishing up that series. I'm having a lot of fun diving into that. And then Friday, all the latest news from Pacerland, including a big group workout at Pascal Siakam's private court. Very cool to see all those guys.
Keep stacking days, Tony. Keep stacking days.
I see you also watched his Instagram story.
I did watch that.
He said that several times. And the first time I've seen a picture of Cole Swider in any Pacers attire. So there we go. Cole Swider officially with some guys on the team in that setting. So thank you all for tuning in today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We will see you tomorrow.